In 1776, John Lane enlisted in the Continental Army to fight for the newly forming country. And fight he did in battle after battle, including in 1777 at the Battle of Germantown, where he fought under George Washington, and in 1779 at the Siege of Savannah, where John was injured. But he continued to serve in the army throughout the war until 1781. After the war, John moved to Richmond, Virginia, and enlisted in the Virginia Public Guard. And he worked as a public guard until 1808, when those injuries made it difficult for him to continue working, which turned out to be a large problem in the state and in the country for a lot of soldiers whose injuries were getting worse. It was such a problem, in fact, that then Virginia Governor Cabell, he wrote to the General Assembly and he asked for them to provide a pension for soldiers injured fighting in the Revolutionary War. And they did. John Lane began receiving an annual pension of $40. His wife, Anna Maria Lane, began receiving $100 a year in pension. We don't know a lot about Anna Maria, and what we do know we didn't learn until a story was published in the Richmond magazine in 1920, the very year women in this country were fighting to earn the right to vote. Anna Maria received a pension of $100 for being a soldier fighting in the Revolutionary War. And of course, women weren't allowed to be in the military to fight in the battles that men did. But she did. In fact, she enlisted in 1776 alongside her husband, John, and she fought with him in every battle he fought in until 1781. And she did it dressed as a man, disguised as a man. She was there at the Battle of Germantown in 1777, where George Washington had not only forbidden women from fighting, but had forbidden any of the camp followers, any women who were usually nearby, from even coming to the battlefield. And it was there that she was injured. But Anna, unlike her husband, who injured in 1779, did go to a doctor. Anna could not risk going to see the medic, getting medical attention, and so her injury went untreated. And we can't know why she received more than twice as much as her husband did in pension. But we can guess. Perhaps it was because women, not being allowed to serve as soldiers, certainly were not paid for their time, so maybe it was compensation for wages lost. Or maybe it was because her injuries, having gone untreated, were far worse than her husband's. Or maybe it's simply because she was a better soldier. We can't ever know, but we do know that when then Governor Cabell wrote to the General Assembly, of soldiers' names cited in his letter, it wasn't John who was listed, it was Anna Maria Lane. And in her pension, it notes that she is receiving $100 per annum for her extraordinary military service in the garb and with the courage of a soldier. It's inspiring. And also sad. Sad that her story wasn't told at the time, that her story wasn't told until 1920. Can you imagine if it had been? Can you imagine if the story of this extraordinary military service by this extraordinary woman was shared in the early 1800s? We can't know that it would have changed things, but maybe. I'd like to imagine that maybe women would have been allowed to serve in the military, to fight in battles. Maybe women would have been allowed to earn wages, to have bank accounts, and to vote if her story had been shared sooner. And can you imagine what America at 250 years would look like today if her story had been told, if her story and the stories of all of the women who fought battles on battlefields, in classrooms, in courthouses, at the capitals, in medical offices, and in our homes had been shared, had been told as fully, as frequently, as proudly as men's stories have been. We don't know that everything would be different, but I do believe that if women's stories had been given equal share of equal value as men's stories, then perhaps today we women in America would have that elusive equality that we are still seeking. It's 2026. It is time to tell, to share, and to listen to women's stories. Women's stories are American stories. They are part of America's story. And American women have earned the right to have our stories heard.